Let's have some sport. The All Whites coach, Anthony Hudson, has stepped down after the team failed to reach the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. Hudson had been in charge of the All Whites for more than 3 years, taking them to the Confederations Cup in Russia this year and reaching the final qualifying stage of the World Cup before falling short against Peru last week, that 0-0 draw in Wellington. Of course, before that, our football reporter, Clay Wilson, has covered the majority of Hudson's tenure. And I asked him if it's a surprise that he's leaving.
Not really, no. I think it all rode on if we were going to qualify for the World Cup. He's been linked with a number of jobs throughout the last probably 12 months in the UK, most recently in the US. It looks like that's potentially what might happen.
Which will pay better, right?
Yeah, and also the other element is more games. It's obviously he hasn't always been happy with the amount of games, and it's just the nature of where we are in the world that the All Whites don't get a lot of games. Right until the end of their World Cup qualifying, I guess they get more games, but with a club job, obviously he's going to get a lot more games and a lot more consistency, and he's a football man. He wants to be coaching. And
yeah, absolutely. If he got a UK club coaching job, how many games would he have a season roughly?
30, 40,
yeah, right,
50.
Okay.
They play a lot of games.
Yeah,
All Whites sometimes 3, 4, 5 games a year, so it's a big difference. Yeah.
What was he like as a coach? My sense was, particularly in the beginning of both games against Peru, there was a little bit of that stuff we see from the Phoenix, which is you just get the ball at the back, you kick long and you hope for the best up the front. Was he imaginative or was he working a formula?
I think he always was, but sometimes necessarily the players he had weren't perhaps capable of that. He was building towards that, but when you're playing against these top teams and you are New Zealand and the players, the difference in quality is so big. I guess you've got to hedge your bets a little bit. They were playing a little bit of that traditional style, lump it forward, but they're also trying to play at times. But of course, with that comes risk. When you play with the ball, you lose the ball, you turn it over.
Yeah.
So I think we did see a little bit of that. Perhaps more so as we got on, but against the bigger teams, not so much, because it's just the nature of playing against those big teams. The quality between the two sets of players is so vast.
So the poor All Whites, they get hardly any games. They're dispersed far and wide around the world, and now they don't even have a coach. What's next for them, and who will coach them, do you think?
Who knows? That's anyone's guess. There's not an obvious candidate or candidates even. Locally, you would perhaps say Danny Hayes' name's been thrown in the mix, the former captain. He's very lukewarm on whether he wants to do it. Whether he's had enough experience is probably a question. A very nice guy and a great up-and-coming coach. I would say it's probably going to come from overseas, but they won't be in any rush, basically because they don't have any games. There's no scheduled games for the All Whites, and their World Cup qualifying won't start.
Sorry, I just want you to repeat that phrase. There are no scheduled games for the All Whites, none?
No, none. They're saying that they're in talks with people and they've got people wanting to play games against them. But the thing is, these are expensive games. New Zealand football is probably not going to have as much money to spend on the All Whites over this next cycle, perhaps the next 2 or 3 years. So who knows what's going to happen. I think it's been perhaps 6 or 8 months, the last 2 times we've lost a coach before a new coach has been appointed. So we could be waiting a while, hopefully not that long this time around. But yeah, whether that'll be someone from here or overseas, I would say perhaps overseas, but they're going to cast the net pretty wide, I would have thought. Yeah.
Gosh, it's tough in New Zealand football, isn't it? And that's why it's hard to retain players in the country, isn't it? Let's talk about basketball. There's an international in New Zealand tonight, right? The South Koreans are here in Wellington. How often does that happen? Well,
Tall Blacks don't get games here very often at all, but they're going to get more. So what this is the Tall Blacks have now moved into the Oceania Confederation, has moved into Asia. So it's sort of been dissolved into Asia, and this is the start, I guess, of their path to World Cup qualifying for 2019. So that's in China. It starts here, so they start in a group of 4, and then they go into, hopefully, progress into a further group, and then eventually qualify for the World Cup. So it means a lot more home games for the Tall Blacks. They'll be obviously rapt about that, and basketball fans, because they don't get to see much of them that often. So I guess we'll see. They lost to South Korea twice at the Asia Cup recently, which is their first sort of taste of Asia. 2 close losses, but
and both up there, weren't they? Both up.
No, so the World Cup was in Lebanon.
Oh, right,
I think.
Okay, yeah. So away games.
Yeah, they played them once in the group play and once in I think the playoff for 3rd and 4th. And lost. So it'll be a pretty decent game, I would have thought, and a Tall Black side, I guess, without Stephen Adams, but still with some and obviously the Breakers going very well and a number of players from there. So we'll see, but I think a lot of basketball fans and just casual sports fans are quite excited to see the Tall Blacks back playing on New Zealand soil.
Clay Wilson, our excellent sports reporter, wearing a very fitting T-shirt. We're just going to show the control room and you'll be able to see that. Look at that. We got a 3-for-1 deal.